to watch. It is a race that is now getting underway. All right, so getting through the prologue here. Prologue's very short, usually very minuscule, but if one racer suffers a death, it could be an early lead for the other racer. And I think Texter, with the PB difference, might know the PB difference and probably doesn't want KVZZ to gain too much of a lead this early on. But it looks like they have just about the same prologue here. And now heading on to the Forsaken City for our first chapter. A lot of our movement technique is going to come into play here. Right off the bat, you also might see some different strats, obviously, from players with different PB levels. But you're going to see a lot of similar strats in this chapter because this chapter is fairly straightforward on what you're doing. But one thing that you can do to help make the chapter a little bit faster is these zipper blocks here. So those zippers, when you make contact with them, whether it be grabbing them or landing on them, they'll start moving. And a lot of times you'll see they're going to try and use them for momentum, just to add like a bit more momentum to their hyper dashes or their whatever, so that they can move faster, generally get through each screen quicker. This game, whenever you die, you get sent back to the beginning of the screen, and most screens are not too big, so it's kind of that style of game. And KVZZ taking an unfortunate death there. Texter, a little bit behind, has been kind of struggling a bit with the entirety of City. So giving KVZZ a really good starting lead as he finishes up City with, I think that was a 112, which is a pretty decent time, or a pretty good time, rather. I don't know why I said decent. That's a lot better than just decent. And so KVZZ is going to be the first one moving on to Old Site, where we have these little blocks, but can't really use them yet. And Texter decides to give up on the neutral jumps after messing them up for a little bit because they are very tricky. Of course, it's a kind of specific timing to actually get that down. You need to, like, let go and hold your stick at the right times to ensure it actually is worth it. But KVZZ getting to the mirror activated the dream blocks, and now you can see all the things that he can do out of dream blocks. As Texter is just now entering the chapter, we're going to have KVZZ fighting Battlein. So, Battlein section can be very scary because not only does it have a lot of very tricky use of dream blocks, but with Battlein following you, you kind of have to make sure you're on the ball with your movement, or else you can accidentally end up running into her. She just kind of trails behind you, or your exact input's 3 seconds behind you do. So if you're not careful with the way you're moving, and especially in some of these later screens where you kind of have to do some backtrack type stuff, Battlein can really cause a big problem. Looks like KVZZ though, doing pretty good so far on the Battlein, and Texter just entering Battlein, so hopefully Texter will also have a good fight here. Some people like to call this a fight. I wouldn't really technically call it one, but I mean, in spirit, I guess it's a fight. And KVZZ out of the fight. After this, once you get to this set of screens, Battlein stops chasing you, and you just kind of go through this section until getting to the Awake section. The Awake section is just entirely movement-based. It is just got to move as fast as you can, do it chaining all the movement you can to just get through some barren screens. And it looks like KVZZ's Awake movement here is absolutely crazy, with all of the going everywhere really quickly. You don't have capped speed in this game, so if you do your Awake section right, you can basically keep gaining. If you want to keep gaining forever, that's like actually, I think, TAS only, based on how specific it is to keep on gaining, especially when you get to like really fast speeds on their own, but usually you see a good amount of speed come from most players, and we're going to see Texter exiting the fight, having to go through these few screens before the awake section as KVZZ already into Celestial Resort, so a really good lead for KVZZ right now, and we're only in the 3rd chapter of the game, not even for Texter. Definitely has been a great run so far on KVZZ's side. I did not see the IL timer for Chapter 2 on his side, but based on what I watched, it was probably a really good time. Alright, Texter now. Finishing up the chapter, KVZZ going through the lobby of the hotel here. There's a few tricky things with the cycles here. Obviously, the Dust Bunnies, they move on cycles, so you kind of have to be careful of your movement, otherwise you might get hit by one unsuspectingly. Making it through very nicely, though. And, Texter now entering the hotel. KVZZ is having a little bit of problems here with this section to go get this key. It can be a tricky set of screens, especially this one I'm not a big fan of, but KVZZ makes it look easy with just a nice extended dash to get over there. And now is going to be entering this checkpoint. So this checkpoint is called the Huge Mess, and basically what it's going to do is it's going to have you clean up 3 sections in order to get a key in the middle so that you can progress. And if you haven't experienced it from the hotel lobby, the Huge Mess is really the point of the game where it shows you that, hey, this is where the real difficulty curve begins. Chapter 3 is much longer and more difficult compared to the first 2 chapters that you've played through, so this chapter kind of serves as a flag for what the rest of the game is going to hold, and the Huge Mess represents that really well, especially when running the game with a ton of really hard just skips and strats in general, and really cool looking stuff. Like here you have a spike jump that KVZZ is going for. It's a combination of 2 things involving hitboxes, one involving when a spike, when you're moving away from the spike it won't hurt you, and one involving corners of walls. And basically you combine those 2 things and it looks like you're wall jumping off a spike. But again, because of the way you're moving, the spike won't damage you, so you don't even have to worry about that. And after each of these sections, you have to talk to a Shiro, which basically determines that route. When you hit a button, platforms disappear from the other route to try and make it more difficult as you go on. But we don't care about that. We only care about hitting an exit that puts us as close to a Shiro as possible. So you're going to see, like, KVZZ is going to go down this little hole here, and then a Shiro is going to be directly to his right, and lead right into the final section as well. And alright, it looks like KVZZ is making pretty nice progress here. As Texter getting to the spike jump, very nicely done. That can be kind of tricky, especially if not done first try, where your movement isn't kind of natural at that point, so you gotta be really careful with that spike jump. Obviously, it's fairly easy to not get hit by the spikes if you know your movement, but always a risk. And deaths are, despite death animations being fast, not always the best thing to have to wait through one. KVZZ is now going to be moving on to the elevator shaft, which is a kind of new can of worms for the level. It's more linear. We're done with the Huge Mess kind of branching paths part. Except it is a lot harder than, say, the entrance to the hotel. The screens in this elevator shaft section are absolutely brutal. And KVZZ is, even with a few deaths in some of them, making them look fairly easy. As Texter hits the second Huge Mess button. So they now have only just 1 more to hit. KVZZ getting that set of hypers first try, and then retrying to get back to the beginning of the screen faster. Very nicely done. That is a very hard set of hypers to do. Not only does your timing have to be right to not hit the Dust Bunnies, but also your height has to be right to not fall or hit the bottom of the Dust Bunnies. And with that, KVZZ is heading on to Ashiro. So Ashiro obviously will charge you. So, want to make sure that does not happen. Fortunately, with your movement, since Ashiro moves in intervals, set intervals even, KVZZ should hopefully have some movement or something ready as to— Oh, that was close. Hit a tiny little part of floor between the wall and the dust bunnies there. But KVZZ should hopefully have something planned out to not have to worry about Ashiro slowing him down or hitting him, which would slow him down considerably. And it looks like Texter is onto the elevator shaft, so making very good progress despite the lead that KVZZ has. Yeah, I didn't even know that either, Tej. I was expecting that to be a death. I don't know. I've never seen that one before for sure. But KVZZ makes it out with a very good Ashiro. And Texter coming up on those key hypers that I mentioned with the intentional retry. And oh, right at the end. That can be, again, a really tricky screen. Fortunately, the death cycle there is rather generous, so usually it's fairly easier if you don't get it the first try. I know some people who even intentionally retry to get the death cycle, but otherwise, it's just kind of tricky in general to get the— oh no, and a death right at the end of a very long room for Texter. Has to go through the whole thing again. Does not seem happy, waiting a little bit before getting back on their feet and continuing. It looks like KVZZ is doing really good with Golden Ridge so far. Kind of making all these mechanics useful. All of these mechanics in Golden Ridge, between the clouds being bouncy, the wind pushing you, the bubbles dashing you, all of them have things that can make your movement completely different than how it was in other chapters. So you really get to kind of play around in this chapter. It's a very open chapter. Obviously, it's set in a kind of sky-based area, so it's very open, which allows a lot of the movement mechanics, like the ones I previously mentioned, as well as these little arrow blocks that I'm forgetting the name that we call them by. But especially with these things, allow you to move around freely, like how you use that arrow block to push you, so you get more momentum to hit that. So it's a really interesting chapter to watch really good runners do, because it's just— they use the kind of mechanics to their advantage and then some. With Texter nearing the end of the Ashiro section here, definitely KVZZ has quite a bit of a lead over Texter, because, you know, they're in a different chapter and all, but Texter is still doing very good on their run here. I don't remember saying "Hey Siri," but I'm sorry, Shellinglet. Alright, Texter is out of Chapter 3, with KVZZ soon to enter the final portion of the Golden Ridge here. Just gonna do a set of things here to skip a wind cycle. Very nicely done. Alright, I'll stop doing that, Chocolate, don't worry. KVZZ is now on the cliff face. This is the last set of screens in the level, where the wind is super harsh. So KVZZ will hopefully know how the wind works and be able to dash accordingly, because you can't really move by walking in this section, so you're gonna have to work around that and make sure you don't have to walk, which we like dashing a lot in this game anyway, so it's not like it's the biggest problem in the world to not be able to dash, or not be able to walk. But KVZZ getting through. Already on the last screen of the level here, as Texter is finally getting into some of these windy screens. And that was absolutely crazy good for KVZZ, finishing up with a— I can't read that. Alright, there we go. I was just fixing a setting so I could see the times better. But it looks like now Texter making fairly alright progress through this chapter, as KVZZ is at the beginning of Mirror Temple here. Not making too much progress. What am I trying to say? I'm making a lot of progress really quickly. I don't listen to me say anything ever. Alright. Making good progress here. With some of these skips. Judging me. Already getting to this section. And Texter. Oh, getting wave dash there. I don't know if it's faster due to the wave dash. I think it might be just a little bit faster, but a little bit more challenging than the usual reverse you see people do there. So very, very good. This is one of the weird screens that has a checkpoint. Mid-screen. The Texter won't lose too much time from that death before getting to this auto-scroller screen. And getting through that Seeker section. So now unraveling. This is where the chapter kind of, I want to say unravels. I really want to say unravels, but I know I'm going to get booed. This is where the chapter really starts to show itself. So when you get introduced to the Seekers, there's a lot of manipulation involving them. Nothing in this game. I don't think anything in this game. I think technically nothing in this game is based in luck, but with the way this game works, I'm afraid to make that statement, because this game is just mean. But you can kind of manipulate the Seekers based on your position to move into the keys, and they can activate the keys, so you can kind of have to move around the screens less by making the Seeker move around for you, which is pretty nice because the Seeker's dash is pretty fast. You also want to stay away from the Seeker, because when you're close to the Seeker, the game kind of has this bullet time slow-mo drama effect, and it's obviously not fast to have that happen because, you know, it's slow-mo. And then you come up on Search Skip at the end of the unraveling section, like that, saving a ton of time, skipping those two bubbles. Texter grabbing a swaggy strawberry before finishing off Golden Ridge, definitely respectable. I think that was a 3:55, which is a really nice time. I kind of struggle with that chapter a lot. I think Chapter 4 is probably like one of my least consistent chapters, other than obviously Summit. So seeing a time like that is always really good in a race. And KVZZ making it to Theo, just as Texter is near the beginning of the chapter. So, gotta have to be careful with your Theo movement, because not only is the Seeker kind of precise on where it dashes on you based on your movement and position, so you want to get the same movement, but with Theo just kind of dragging you down in the variables with just small differences in how you handle Theo here, it can kind of make the Seekers uncontrollable beasts of enemies. So it takes a lot to kind of get this section down to a science like some top runners have it, and of course KVZZ being, if my recollection of looking at the SRC board is correct, 8th place. We can very clearly see he has this down to the science I'm talking about, with just absolutely insane movement here. Gonna be making it to the last room just as Texter is in the double bubble room. Alright, and KVZZ now finished with a very good Mirror Temple. Now going to be moving on to Reflection. So, Reflection, if Chapter 4 was kind of all about using mechanics to kind of mess with your momentum. Chapter 6 is all about full range of movement. So you have these feathers, which let you move in a full analog 360-degree range of motion. And soon you're going to see two other mechanics being these crush blocks, also known as Kevin blocks in the community, which will kind of move infinitely in whatever direction you dash into them to, as well as pinball bumpers we're going to see a little bit later, which, if you know what pinball is, you probably know what a bumper does. Kind of one of the most iconic parts of pinball. And it can bounce you in any direction based on your angle that you hit it, so you do have to be careful with how you do it, otherwise it can be no good. Having a bit of trouble with some of these screens here at the beginning of Reflection. It is a fairly hard chapter all the way through, because of all the things I mentioned, letting you move probably more freely than any chapter beforehand. I'm not going to say in general, because we all know what Summit's like, but I'll be talking about Summit when we get there. And it's always a chapter where a lot of things can go wrong if you're not, like, right on your ball. It looks like Texter is making good progress through Unraveling, though, as KVZZ is working on Reflection. So, definitely an interesting watch on both sides, even with them in vastly different chapters. Every chapter in this game feels like completely different, which helps the run stay fresh to a lot of people, and what I feel like helps a lot of people want to play this game for a very long amount of time is just how it feels like all the changes in chapters just make it never get boring, because it never feels stale in the movement. Which is ultimately a good thing for a speed game, especially if you want to play a lot of it. So, Texter coming up on Search Skip here. And there we go. First try for both of those is pretty good, especially because doing reverses can be tricky, if you're someone like me, at least. I don't know. I don't know how easy some other people find reverse extendeds and stuff like that, but I personally think they're one of the harder techniques because of just your quick analog movements and... Or not even analog, some people use D-pad, but just your quick directional movements, I think is what I meant. KVZZ now heading to chase down Battling to get into the fight. This chapter kind of returns the Battling fight from Chapter 2, except it's kind of the opposite where you want to reach Battling. So right now we just have to locate her by following her hair. Texter trying to go through the Theo section here. Having a bit of unfortunate death at this first sticker, but there we go, getting through it now. Hopefully that will be the worst screen we see from Texter in this section, because this section can be rough. And so it's always one of those sections that you really want to hope goes right, but sometimes it just will not happen the greatest. Yeah, just don't die, Lev, you're right. And KVZZ with a decent battle and boost, gets hit about halfway through the hallway, unfortunately, but does make it into the fight with pretty good speed. And so now, in the fight, going to be wanting to hit Battling. Getting to the ground a lot of your movement techniques are based in the ground, so you want to dash like down or down right, or just try and get to the ground quickly after hitting Battling so that you can do, you know, a hyper or something, just to move a little bit faster. And KVZZ doing really good so far. Texas heading on that final section of the level where you just have this one screen before the ending, so this has been really good for Texter. Gonna be kinda, I think 6:15-ish for Texter on Mirror Temple. Oh, accidentally throwing backwards. Alright, a 6:20. Still pretty good. That screen can be tricky if you throw Theo backwards. It can be really hard to recover if you mess that screen up, so Fortunately, you can't really die on it, though, so Texter getting through and going to be heading on to Chapter 6, Reflection, with KVZZ, where KVZZ is going to be working on the remix of the Battle and Fight. So, kind of in, like, the last third of this fight, these blocks will start moving on cycles, and just like a lot of other moving things, we're going to be using this to our advantage to kind of mess with our momentum a bit and do some things even faster. For example, on this screen right here, you can wait for this block to go up and then use it for height instead of having to do some sort of weird wall jump or bounce or something. Oh yeah, you can probably find a way to die on some of these screens that it seems like you can't die on, but it's not that common, is what I mean. Yeah, the frame-perfect Theo drop. But we're past that, so we don't need to worry. And KVZ doesn't even need to worry about the Battle and Fight anymore, because he's past that. So you level up, you have 2 dashes now, your hair is pink, because your hair is your dash indicator. Kind of just how it works. And you can get up to the end of the chapter. And this is why I didn't want to say Chapter 6, despite all its kind of analog stuff. And it's kind of just quick-moving stuff, was the most free-moving chapter. Because with 2 dashes, Summit, which is the upcoming and also final chapter on KVZZ's end, is going to be just absolutely nonsensical with some of the stuff it decides to throw at you. As Texter is now making it to the split path section. Going down on the first split path is not something you see very commonly, but Texter makes it through that screen quickly and seems comfortable with it, so, I mean, if you want to do that, then no one's stopping you. KVZZ on the Summit base. So each section of Summit is kind of based off a different section. So here we have, like, the Reflection, kinda. Except, you know, not underground. And Texter doing pretty good on the split path section. Messing up a little bit with the pinball bumpers by dashing a little bit too late into one of them. I think try to boost there. If you hold a certain direction at a certain frame when it comes to pinball bumpers, I don't really remember exactly how it works, but you can kind of get an extra boost by holding the right direction at the right time with the pinball bumpers. I think if it's you're holding against the pinball bumper at a certain time when you hit it, you'll get a boost. And you can use that in some screens with the bumpers to just kind of move you a little faster. Looks like texts are either not going or not getting. Not going is very understandable because some of the boosts can make things a bit riskier. And yeah, I guess 3,000 meters doesn't really give you as much freedom as a lot of other sections, but the double dashes just kind of make things in Summit absolutely crazy with what you can do. As you saw in that 500 that KVZZ just went through, there was a lot of kind of crazy movement compared to what you might usually see a casual player do. 1,000 I think is a bit more simple on what to do. Even with the return of the Dream Blocks aren't the weirdest of mechanics. And KVZZ, I don't see having too much problem with them. As Texter is now going to be doing these hole in the spikes to get through this section a little bit quicker. Dying and not getting the checkpoint. When you do the dev skips there with the spikes, you skip the checkpoint. So it's kind of a risk-reward thing if you want to go for them. Some people legitimately grab the checkpoint and then just try and do the skip, which is a good strategy if you don't want to risk too much. But some people just like to go full in. I just kind of am not a fan of all of 3,000, honestly. Downdraft, updraft, whatever. And so Texter, we'll see how Texter does on Battle and Boost. It looks like not going for it. Okay, this is interesting, but Texter, I don't know what happened there, but looks like Texter's back in the mindset here for the battle and fight. Okay, Chocolate, that's just wrong to say. That's just so... I can't even believe you'd say that. Alright, KVZZ with a nice 3,000. And... Did I say 3,000? 3,000's on my brain. 1,500. Alright. Let me get my brain in focus. 2,000. This is 2,000. So, this... A few screens from now, we're gonna see kind of a decent skip. We're gonna have auto-scroller skip. So, in Bolden Ridge, you remember a lot of the blocks that I forgot the name of, so I think I called them arrow blocks, but I'm gonna have to look it up after. You kind of have to wait for them to go to a certain place. But with that extended, you can reach that block, and then boom, like that, KVZZ, making it through the auto-scroller skip. First try, 3,000 half meters, thank you. And KVZZ playing it safe, not doing the normal people, or not the normal people, but the faster strat of going up the wall there. Is K's... I don't think KVZZ is on PB pace, no. Definitely doing really good, but not quite, I think. But 2,500 is kind of an evil section, with Texter on the remix, too. So both of them are kind of tricky sections. Directional platforms. Okay, thank you, Walsh. Yeah, I forgot what the glossary called them. So... I tried making something up that sounds about right. No. KVZZ has a 32-19. Got a high 33 in a race in the group stages. Got a 30-30-59. But no, KVZZ has a low 32. Oh yeah, the commentary glossary also does point out what water is. But we don't really have to worry about water for the rest of the run anymore. That's just kind of the first half of Reflection, which Texter is now almost done with the second half of Reflection, having finished the fight against Battlein. And KVZZ is on to 3,000. So 3,000 is kind of its own section. So the rest of Summit is kind of a throwback medley of the rest of the game, but 3,000 introduces its own stuff. So we were talking a bit earlier about downdrafts and updrafts in 3,000, and basically what that implies is that the wind here is going to be blowing up and down, which is going to be changing the way your gravity works, so whether you get weighed down if your jumps go lower or higher. So at the beginning here, your jumps are lower, which means KVZZ is going to be getting sent to the ground a lot quicker with his jumps and dashes than previously. No, not berry. Not the time for the berry. Okay. Alright. And Texter working through Summit right now on the base. And KVZZ on the updraft now, so... There. And halfway through. So there are 30 of these flags that count down to the top of the summit. And with 15 hit for KVZZ, KVZZ is in the second half of the flags. Not necessarily the second half of 3,000, because some flags are longer than others. But halfway through the flag count, which is pretty dang hype, if I say so myself. I know a lot of people in chat like to count down these flags and runs, so... If you want to do that, I will not stop you. Last 10, so last third here for KVZZ. And Texter getting through 500. A lot of tricky stuff with zippers and the falling blocks here in 500, so we'll see how Texter does with these last couple screens. Making it through that skip very nicely. Cute guys. KVZZ on the last battle and throw of 3,000. So battle and throws are usually what transport you from segment to segment, but KVZZ isn't going to be seeing those anymore because it's on the last segment, on the 4th flag before the ending. Now the 3rd even. Okay, KV. Get in some weird corners this race. And flying up here to the 2nd checkpoint as Texter is flying through 1,000. And, alright, KVZZ's at the 1st flag. So the 1st flag is not that much a challenge when it comes to being a flag. It's just kind of a last little atmospheric moment of, hey, you made it to the top of the mountain before you actually make it to the top of the mountain and skip the cutscene at the end of the game. GG's to KVZZ on the victory with 33.06, a very good time to get, especially in a race like this. Alright, so that was a really good victory for KVZZ, with Texter being in 1,500 still, so kind of a big win here, but Texter still on a very good run, so hope to see a strong finish here. And, alright, making it through some of these longer rooms in 1,500 first try, which is kind of hard to do, so very nice to see someone do it. Alright, there we go. On the last screen here, with the battle and throws. Ooh, getting kind of sketchy with the dust bunnies here. You don't want to mess with the dust bunny cycles. They are a very rough thing. And... ooh, jeez, this is rough. Gonna be jumping into reset cycles. 2 entry cycles. Hopefully that will help here. A little bit, kind of sketchy. Oh no! This is not good for Texter. Was on a really good summit until this screen. Especially 1,500. And there we go. I hope Mr. Shiro is okay as well. Got a bit of rage pausing, I guess, going on before the cutscene skips. I don't know what that was. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but definitely really rough there for Texter, who's now in 2,000. So does not need words. Mr. Shiro has food poisoning. Oh no. That's what happens when you only get 2 strawberries. Fortunately, Texter has 3. So we'll not murder a Shiro today. That's pretty... Can we give it up for not murdering a Shiro? Oh, yes. And, alright, Texter. Kind of scaring me, but making it through the auto-scroller screen. Not going for the skip, but still doing the screen try. So, obviously not a bad thing, because still moving quickly. And nearing the end of 2000. And all right, now into 2500. We'll see how he does with some skips. I don't think KVZZ went for door skip, so it'll be interesting if Texter decides to. I don't know the answer to that question, Chocolate. I don't know. Texter messing up the door skip on their first try, getting the first door, and getting it second try. Very nice. Literally saves a second to do that, so a lot of people like doing it because why not? Alright, moving on to the last section here. Getting through this downdraft. Alright, making it through the first 10. Now just 20 flags to go here. Also at the end of the updraft, just has to get through up here. And alright, very good start to 3000 by Texter here. Now Texter gonna be heading on to the updraft, so gonna go with a lot of floatier, more challenging, moving stuff. Hopefully we'll not struggle too much with it. Ooh, having a bit of a problem here. That was nice. And, alright, making it, I think, almost at the halfway part. Oh, no, already past the halfway part. Already past 15. So, already done with the first half of flags. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean half the level, but the flags are cool, I guess. Alright, on to the final 10 now. Moving very nicely through the section. This has been a really good 3000 for Texter here. And hopefully this finish will be as strong as it can be. Heading into 9, skipping 8, but getting to 7 fine. All right. So Texter onto the last 5 flags now. And that was a nice wall bounce. Getting to the last 3. Oh, skipping checkpoint 3. That's a risky move there. Checkpoints have a little bit before they actually activate, so you can skip them like that, and it's really risky. Some people also skip checkpoint 2. I've noticed sometimes, either on accident or intentionally. Texter, fortunately, making it to checkpoint 2 before dying on checkpoint 3, so no need to worry about death. And at checkpoint 1, so Texter's just got to finish going up here. Very kind of scary with the momentum there, but gets through it fine. And getting there, we have GG's for Texter, finishing in second place with a 42.444. Wow, that's awesome. That's really cool from Texter there. And so if I can check the schedule here, our next race is going to be tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. So about 19, I can't do math. 19 hours from now is our next race between Star Cruncher and Blue Eye. So we also have races at 5, 6, 7, 9, and 10 tomorrow with high-level runners such as TGH, M Sushi, Valu, Ben TZ, and a ton of other people. So, gonna be very good. I have to head out now. Coming up on Speed Gaming in 4 minutes on Speed Gaming 3 is going to be a Zelda 1 randomizer match in which I have to do some tracking for. So I better get out, get ready for that race before 8 o'clock happens. So I'll be seeing you guys hopefully soon. All right, thank you for watching today.